you said. I'm from India, of course. Quite visible from my face where I'm from. I've been in Atlanta for last nearly 8 years now, and loving so far. I've had a background in system engineering for 4 years in Infosys before this. Left there, came here, and been with G&D for last 8 years in Atlanta. I was born and brought up in Bhopal, in a small town called Baragarh. Mostly studied there, did my high schooling there, pretty close to my house. And since then, been moving around from Pune to Mysore, back to Pune, and then finally to United States. It all started, I think, just after high school. I came from a lower middle class family, to say the least. Very limited resources, and my parents did just fine. But you always have that chip on your shoulder that you want to do something more. And looking at my expertise back in the day, even at 6th grade, I was building PCs when kids did not even know how to start a PC. You got to utilize that knowledge that you have since early days, that something connects with you. And so that's where it started. The thought process started. Where is the next step for me? Okay, you got to start somewhere. So I did my undergrad, and it kind of reinforced the thought, because when you move away from your city, from Bhopal, small town, you get to a bigger city, you get to see many perspectives. Someone is talking about UK, someone is talking about Spain, someone is talking about Australia. We went there for counseling for New Zealand, if you remember, and so on it goes. And there are just so many aspects you have to cover, what fits best for you. So in all honesty, when I was in undergrad in Symbiosis back in the days in Pune, the idea was not US, but UK. It was for the first 2 years of undergrad, the idea was always UK. It flipped on its switch because of the change in their visa policies. And what I got to know with more experience is that UK and most of the European countries are good at management sector,
right,
marketing sector, automobile sector. In Germany, nobody does it better than them. But when you're talking a computer science, a tech hub, nobody does it better than you. So that kind of settled on, okay, where I need to go, because the expertise that I had outlined with one specific thing, that was computer science. That's where US was settled on. Now, how did I got to Atlanta being the preference of choice, right? Not really Atlanta. Atlanta wasn't in my mind. It was not the city, it was the university that I had compiled up, that what I could. And there are a lot of factors goes into choosing a university, right? You can't just pick Ivy League colleges, because like I said, I came from a middle class family. I don't have $200,000 to spend on my education. So I had to limit that factor out. Which colleges fit into my needs, in my criteria, especially the money need. How much I have to prepare for it. What are the GMAT requirements? What are the GRE requirements? What are the IELTS requirements? And so on it goes. There are so many things that go along that in the decision making. And during that process, I had to settle for a college which was affordable for me, but had the right ranking that gets me inside the doors of the company for an interview. Because that's always been the goal. Education, yes, it's a goal. You learn something, but in reality, how many times you apply the full force of your education into professional work? In my case, it's less than 10%. I did the data science with a bit of cybersecurity, and I'm full-time cybersecurity engineer. So only a part of it is applicable, but it gives you a contextual background of how to fit into the US throughout these. And that's all it was. That's what college was for me. It was basically a step into the United States to not only broaden my horizon in terms of cultural context, but also computer science context. Why GSU? GSU was basically, like I said, affordable. I had 3 invites, basically 3 admission letters from North Carolina, from Georgia, and from Florida, all South. Quite similar in price brackets, and then turned out to be that GSU was top 10 in the course that I chose, which was Master in Science Information Systems. Right. Now it has fallen through the cliff. It's 23rd or 24th, but my days are done, so I'm not really worried about that. But yeah, it was top 10 back then. So it was a kind of a logical choice to just pursue that endeavor. So I did stay. for 4.5 years with Infosys, and everybody has to pay their dues because it was a great learning curve for me. But at the same time, you got to move away. When you hit your ceiling at some point and say, yeah, there is nowhere else to go, you move out. And that kind of triggered the process, and I got out. What do I need to do in the next 5 to 10 years? That came to me about 6 months into the college when I got my first course as in the cybersecurity, information security. It connected with like everything so far, like the computer science has connected with me, programming has connected with me. That course connected with me. I put in barely any effort and I had an A+ in that. So it's not choosing an easy path, it's choosing a path that your brain says, I'm good at it.
Right.
That kind of a thing. So cyber world, and I already was quite dug deep into cyber world, looking at these news, phishing problems and everything that goes on in the cyber world. I was quite intrigued how we can come about and fix them. So that started very small, and here we are 8 years later. Yeah. Of course, I was compared. Everybody does that, right? Because in India, like here, I barely know my neighbors. I know 3 of them out of like 50. In India, you know 60 out of 50. You know additional people who are not even in your neighborhood. That's how India works. Because in a small town, you know everybody.
Right.
My mom in particular, why not engineering? Stay within the city. Some out of love, some out of comparison with other kids. And even my family. Everybody did engineering. So I wasn't always an outlier in that regard. So a lot of fallback. But yeah, Dad has always been incredibly supportive. He doesn't interfere. He said, okay, you think this is the field for you? Go for it. And let's see how it sticks out. So that kind of was a big motivator. He doesn't know anything about my field. He has no knowledge. And he is very clear about that he doesn't have any knowledge. So he trusts my judgment that I know better for myself. And that has somehow worked out. He trusted me since those days. When I was a very immature kid, but he still trusted me to make my own decisions, and kind of worked out. Outside of parents, you. Because the thing is, computer science, I started over there, right? You can't let go where you started from, because without that particular step, I wouldn't have recognized myself how good I was at. I can't speak French. You put a computer language in front of me, I somehow understand it.
Right.
I don't know why. Those lines that are gibberish to 99.9% of the people on this planet makes sense to me. Binary makes sense to me. And I got started on that because you were 5 years older than me. So I got started because you got your first PC. It was always a competitive phase. Okay, he has a PC, I need a PC. So that kind of kept propelling me forward in that field. And by 8th grade, I already realized that I was teaching my team. Everyone in your life, from your family, your friends, to these great people who have inspired you, you take bits and pieces of your life and try to apply that in your day-to-day life.
Right.
From discipline to work culture to ethics, like the ethics, morals, I've taken from Ratan Tata, because nobody does it. How to live a life for the betterment of humanity and for a lot of other things. So there are certain initiatives that I want to work on. That guy is a legend, so you can't really compare. But who inspires you? Definitely Ratan Tata. He's really old. He's at a bad stage right now. But what an incredible inspiration he is across the board for what he has done.
True.
I mean, he had all the opportunity to be the richest person in the world anytime he wanted. And the guy doesn't care. He doesn't care. Tata Group may still be the richest company in the world. Who knows? I don't have the stats in front of me. But he had the opportunity, being the CEO of that company, being the owner of that company, to be that. But he never cared. He was like, okay, I got 100, I'm going to give back 40. That's a sentiment that's hard to come by. So I got my admit letter on October 4th. I remember that, one of the best days of my life. Making decisions, October 4th, 2016 is when I got my offer letter. And after that, it was basically a firefight because my course had to start on 9th of Jan. So I didn't have a lot of time to prepare for it. Right. Usually I came in spring batch. When people come in fall batch, they have a lot of time to prepare because the admits are out in March and the course doesn't start till end of July, August.
Okay.
So they have a lot of time to prepare for it. My course started just 3 months just about 3 months after that. With 3 months, you have to give a notice. In India, the policy is you have to give a 3 months notice, 90 days. We follow the European policy, right? In US, you just have 2 weeks courtesy notice.
Right.
You can pack your bags today and leave, and they have no way of holding you back. Not so much in India. You have to give proper notice. So I was under a very strict timeline to keep working and managing this. I'm going to be very honest here. There was not a lot of in terms of where I'm going to be in 5 years when I got here.
Right.
It was still figuring things out because you can't really plan 5 years when you don't even know what the things are going to be like when you get there. Right. US was a very new domain for me. As an Indian, when you're moving to any different country, there is a significant cultural gap that you have to bridge over the months and the years to come. And I still haven't been able to do that fully. To realize where you're going to be in 5 years, you need to understand what you're learning. And that process came to me about 6 months into my college, not before. Till then, and I have a habit of making short goals, not very long goals, like where I see myself in 10 years. In India, you have this, so going back to the question, right? And in India, my thought process was, where do I need to see myself in 10 years? I'm going to be in Silicon Valley, in Fortune 500 companies.
Right.
Looking back now, very immature goal. There is nothing special about Silicon Valley that people think of. It's just another tech hub. Atlanta is no different. But because all the startups and major Fortune 100 companies, NVIDIA, you name Google, Facebook, everything came from there. So you have this thought process that Silicon Valley is the stepping stone. Like that's it. You get to that point, that's a top step for you. Not so much when you come here and you realize. So your goals keep adapting based on what you learn throughout the time. Definitely not excitement. Anybody says there was excitement, you're lying, first of all. You're leaving your country, you're leaving your comfort zone by a big margin. I was virtually broke because everything went back into the college and I came here with $3,000. Even the flight was a hassle to choose the cheapest flight. So every $100 you can save, that goes back into expenses for the month in United States. And it matters. That matters a lot. There are certain things you should not skimp on, and I made some mistakes along the way. I shouldn't have skimped on some things and it would have been better. Yes. Initially, everything is a hassle, from booking the flight tickets, looking at the cheapest possible prices, to coming here, finding an apartment. So yeah, a lot of anxiety and a lot of thought goes into that. I've always been a person who overthinks, tries to put all the pros and cons on a sheet and try to figure out, okay, what do I need to prepare for in terms of cons? What do I have in the bank and what do I need to prepare for? And that turned out to be a quite extensive process, at least for me. Try to thought process, and I'm a bit of a control freak as well, so I like everything to be prepared before I get there and not try to improvise when I get there. Improvisation works when you know where you are headed. If you're headed into a jungle, you know where you are headed. United States was a complete different monster for me. I had no idea what I'm getting. Right. So again, my father helped me a lot because he's been bank officer for a long time. He was retired at that time, but he helped me manage my finances. Right. In a way that, okay, he contributed a bit. I had a bit of saving from Infosys. That was it. And then most of it was basically education loan from Punjab National. It just makes sense to take a loan out where you're living with your parents. Because no matter how easier things have gotten now, back in the day, at least I'm saying like I'm 20 years back, but no, it's not. It's only 7-8 years back. Things were not easy. Loans are still not easy. And I've been hearing stories from my friends from different banks, SDFC, IDFC, wherever you go, these guys don't make the process easy. If I had to pick one experience that was extremely bad out of all the others, I would say the loan process. The way I did it was basically when I got my admit letter, we had WhatsApp groups going on, social groups going on with people who had the admit letter, who had received the admit letter, who were looking for the same thing. Right. You make a group, try to find out who works, and it's a blind gamble because you don't know how your roommate's going to turn out. And in my case, I'm going to explain later, it didn't turn out really well. Like it turned out to be really well with one guy, but not with the others. Right. And it's always a gamble, but you have to choose your peers from your college at that time. You don't have a lot of ways to go about it. We made a group of 4 guys on WhatsApp, basically, who were basically left behind by others. It's not like I made the group. I'm basically picked in a group because only 4 people were left at that time with their admit letters and no place to live. A lot of people got their admit letters early on, so they prepared well before. We got in October. So I had my great friend, still a friend, Utkarsh, and we were all made a group on WhatsApp, and we started searching. And there were a few options, few apartments, but you have to pick your budget. So back in the day, budget was like $1,400 to $1,600. And 4 guys living in a 2-bedroom apartment. So basically, keep it under $400 for your monthly rent. That was the target for each and every one of them. That was kind of a clear thing. So we had to keep it under $1,600. If you have the money, if you are loaded, you have all sorts of options. But if you are on a budget, then your options are quite limited. And it's true kind of everywhere. It's not just US, it's true everywhere. But that situation exacerbates itself here because you're on a very tight budget. Like I said, I came here with 3,000, so I had to keep that in mind, like how much I'm going to spend. So looking at the aspects, and I chose the apartment, so I know the process very well. Searching for apartments in United States is not that difficult. It's not a process that you go through brokers like I went through in Pune. Jump from one broker to another, you never know where the listing is. They will tell you where the listing is because only they know where the listing is. Here, you have these apartment complexes which are designed for only rent. Okay. So you can go online, you can search with the zip code specifically where you want to live. Like for us, it was 30324 zip code, which is in Lindbergh community in Atlanta. Because our college was just a station away. And since each and every one of our peers was living in that area, it just made sense to live in that area. So because you can pick your brain, you can work on projects and so on. There's a lot of benefits out of that. So we picked out an area and we started searching. And then after that, wasn't that difficult. We had to pick an apartment. The first apartment that we picked was Uptown Square back in the day. But all of our peers who had received the invites before or admit letter before, they kind of booked that place. Like not a single apartment was left free. Apartment searching is not that big of a hassle. We made a big of a hassle because we had a lot of unknowns. So my advice for the people who are coming in, don't think too much on that. You don't have to think too much. Just do the research. It's maybe a week worth of tasks for you to sort out. But once you have your roommates, you have your budget sorted out, it doesn't even take a week to book an apartment, and every single bit of processing that happens, it happens when you get there. Right. They give you the lease documents, the ID proofs, your immigration documents and everything. All that processing happens on the first. Initially, your credit cards, your debit cards, you have cash, and these guys don't take cash. So you have to go with the money draft. Basically, go to any of the financial services, Kroger's, Publix or whatnot. They are easily accessible. The place we used to live, Kroger's was opposite to that. That was quite convenient. We went there, we gave them our cash, they gave us a money draft and we paid. And within a month after that, you kind of sort out your banking accounts and everything. So after that, it's not a problem. But initially, a lot of people think, oh, how I'm going to pay this? How I'm going to pay this? And we had that trouble too. It's a very simple process. Give your money to the get a money draft and pay. So when I got there, a bit of a panic. For sure. When I get there, I see the building and I'm like, okay, now it's really gotten real. It's real now. There is no going back. There is no second thought. It's real. Now you have to step in and get the job done for the next year or so. There was a bit of a comfort because when I walked in, 70% of the people I saw were Indian. Tech industry, right? Stereotype, it applies. It doesn't go away. So tech industry, you see 70% Indians, you feel kind of at home. So yeah, bit of a panic and bit of an excitement, but things just get real for you in your head that, okay, you are in, you're committed. And that was at least my thinking. Like, okay, now it's real. Now then there is no backing down.